Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Boardmasters with the two Chris's, and we are going to talk about today the first 5 scenarios of Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion and just give our thoughts on how effective it works as a tutorial for the game. And obviously the big disclaimer, if you've seen any of the gameplay series, I made the big error in the middle between scenario 3 and 4 where we had a big gap, and I managed to convince myself that the enemies use their basic stats every turn, plus the enemy AI card, which was obviously a massive mistake and made a number of scenarios very difficult for us. But that was entirely on me and not the tutorial. So what are your initial thoughts on it, Chris?
I mean, what got me first of all was just the scale of the game. Out of all the games, certainly of all the games we've played so far, this is by far the most complex. A lot of rules to remember. There's just a lot going on. I mean, from the elements, remembering to move the elements back after every round, and moving traps and everything else. There's a lot to sort of remember. But my initial sort of impressions with the game is that it's very epic. I love the fact that you've got so many scenarios and each one is very different with the setup. As far as the first 5 scenarios are concerned, I really enjoyed them. I know there was sort of mistakes we made. There's 2 or 3 sort of glaring mistakes we made.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the whole, I really enjoyed it. I like the fact you could sort of build that character up as you go. You sort of start as a very low level 1 character, and you're gradually working your way up and buying equipment.
The player powers are fun, aren't they? And I mean, just building on what you said about how complex it is and how many rules, the way the tutorial introduces the rules each time, I think builds on it really nicely. I mean, if you sort of imagine like full fat Gloomhaven has no tutorial, so you're basically playing the game we're playing now straight from the beginning, and that must be a nightmare to try and learn and remember all of that.
Yeah.
Whereas you're gently eased into it. Scenario 1, it's just basic movement and attacking. Scenario 2, the enemy AI deck. Scenario 3 brings in difficult terrain. And
so do you think it was a case they sort of like learnt their lesson from Gloomhaven?
Yeah, I think they definitely took what they learned from that and added this. I don't know if they've done the same for Frosthaven, to be honest. I haven't followed that campaign finished before I got in the hobby.
Hopefully they will have.
Yeah, so I think it's very effective from that standpoint. I think it did a very good job of easing us in to a very complex game. I mean, it's not perfect.
No. And I do wish, obviously time didn't allow, I just wish we could have had the first 5 just in one hit, or there wasn't such a long gap, because there was that 3-week gap sort of between 3 and 4, between 2 and 3, I can't remember which one it was now, there was a gap.
3 and 4. Yeah.
And I sort of totally forgot a lot of the sort of the moves you could do within the game, and a lot of what each,
I think the basic stuff we had down, but I think even with the tutorial, like in scenario 3, even before the gap with the difficult terrain, it was a bit vague.
Yeah.
Like it says, it takes 2 points of movement whenever you cross the purple border.
Yeah.
But then we were okay, if you're moving difficult terrain to difficult terrain, you're within the border, you're not crossing a border, is that 2 points of movement? It is, but the rules didn't really explain that.
No.
And there are little finicky rules that are in the rule book, like for example the gear in terms of how many bag items you can take in.
Yeah.
Because I think it was scenario 5 on the video I think I had a potion and a compass. I think you had 2 or 3 potions.
Yeah.
And although in the rule book it states 1 bag item, it's just 1 throwaway line, and it was easy to miss. And again, that's on us more than the tutorial. But I think as 2 noobs coming into it, it maybe needs to spell it out and emphasize it a bit more, and not just one line in the middle of a paragraph. It needs to be like in bold, this is the equipment you can take in.
Yes, yeah. It's not, and even on the actual cards themselves, the item cards, it's quite small at the bottom. Maybe they could have color coded. I don't know, color coded each card for the relevant section of the body. I don't know, but yeah, there was definitely elements that we probably sort of skipped over. Not the game's fault, as Chris said. It was just sort of elements because there was so much to sort of digest. We were sort of missing some key parts. But yeah, they could have made things possibly a bit easier by highlighting things, color coding things, making things bigger.
Yeah, I suppose maybe it could have had the city part where you bought the equipment and had the equipment, and then it had the scenario introduction thing where this is the new stuff that's in it.
Yeah.
And they could have re-emphasized it there that, oh, you may have 2 bag pieces of equipment now, you may only take 1 in.
Yeah.
And that would have made it abundantly clear that you can only have 1 rather than multiple. And yeah, I guess there's been little things that we've needed to Google kind of throughout the scenarios since.
I think it was mostly about the moves that each character could make with the sort of like the epic characters be able to have more advantages in their attacks. I think there might have been some misunderstandings there right at the beginning, as well as I think the very first scenario, I think we only used 1 attack on
on the vermlings. And it's little things even now, like if you have strengthen and muddle on yourself, so you have advantage and disadvantage, do they just cancel out? Or that's how we've been playing it, and that's the logical way, but I don't know if that's, I haven't seen it addressed in the rulebook, and again, that might be my error. But I think on the whole, it does a very good job of hand holding you through from the very basic scenario. When you look back to scenario 1, what we were doing, literally move and attack, to what we're doing now with moving, attacking, status elements, objectives, and everything else. Even though we may not be playing the game perfectly still, I mean, I did a review a few months back on do rule mistakes even really matter?
Yeah.
As long as we're not deliberately cheating the game, if we're making the odd mistake unconsciously, it doesn't really detract from the experience, I don't think, because this is a phenomenal game that I'm loving playing.
And I think I like the fact that it does very much guide you on the cards. I think the right is sort of in blue, and it sort of like it tells you what each sort of attack does at the beginning. It does walk you through it, and I like the fact that you could sort of, as you develop, it gives you extra, slowly sort of like spoon feeds you extra cards.
Yeah,
it's very well labelled which cards you take. There's not really much confusion with that aspect. So I like the fact it sort of builds you up. To be a stronger player.
Introduces leveling up. It's well paced in terms of it's designed so it knows in the tutorial when you're likely to be leveling up. So then it introduces what you do when you level up, and then it introduces the scenario level. So that's really well done.
Yeah.
So on the whole, as a sort of sum up, from my opinion, I think it's a very, very effective tool. I think it's not perfect, so if it's 2 noobs like us, mistakes are still going to be made.
Yeah.
You'll get the gist of most of it. If you're doing the tutorial with an experienced person who knows the rules, then it will be much smoother. And it'll be much easier for that person teaching the game than if you're diving straight into scenario 5. That must be a nightmare to teach, I would imagine. But if you're teaching a group from scenario 1, and you can then answer their questions and fill in the gaps, it's an excellent tool.
This is definitely well designed for new players, for new gamers. I think even a new gamer could just, because it's so well set out, and it does just, as I said before, it does sort of guide you very well. So my thoughts about the sort of first 5 scenarios would be that it's very user friendly. I really enjoyed playing the first 5 scenarios. The mistakes we made sort of made it harder for ourselves. I think a couple of them we had to, I forget which ones it was now, but a couple of them we had to replay a lot because
four was the main one.
Because there was one mistake we made which made it so much harder for ourselves.
But that was again on me, not on the game.
So yeah, we can't really blame the game for that. But yeah, I really enjoyed the first 5 scenarios. I got a lot from it. It's not from the first 5 scenarios. It's sort of, for me anyway, it makes me want to go further. It's not sort of scaring me off or boring me. You know, I want to play this game more.
Tantalizes.
Yeah. I think. There's not much more I can say about the first 5 scenarios really. Other than the fact I really enjoyed it.
And it's as a tool, which was the point of the series, I guess, to appraise how effective it was at teaching us. Other than my idiocy, they did a very, very good job. And yeah, that's our opinions on the introductory scenario. Join us next week while we do our review of the overall game. And we'll see you then. So thank you for watching. Look after yourself, stay safe, and have a good one. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.